I went to log into my online social media forum, Weibo. I'm just giving that a little bit of a description because not everyone watching this may be familiar with it. Weibo is a Chinese social media network, somewhat similar to Twitter. I've used it now for a few years to keep in touch with Chinese friends. It's a pretty decent forum in the sense that you can, upload photos and statuses and so on, like pop groups, etc. And it has various topical news reports in Chinese. David Cameron um, and Theresa May both set up a Weibo account on their respective visits to China. Um, Theresa May probably around the time of her visit to the G20 summit in Hangzhou in 2016. Anyway, as I went to log into my Weibo account, a news report or several news reports came up about Weibo and particularly the comedian John Oliver. And basically, it turns out that he has been blocked or banned temporarily, at least, because he made jokes about Xi Jinping. So I'm going to read out the report from Reuters. It's not very long, so bear with me, and I'll try and put a link on this. Shanghai. China's Twitter-like microblogging service Weibo has blocked and deleted posts referring to British comedian John Oliver after he slammed the country's human rights record and mocked President Xi Jinping on his show last week tonight. And the report goes on to say, in a 20-minute segment aired on HBO last Sunday, Oliver criticised China's moves to end presidential term limits and enshrine Xi Jinping thought in its constitution, saying Xi's consolidation of power was driven by a leadership cult. Oliver also mocked China's Belt and Road Initiative, its ongoing crackdown on corruption, and moves to censor online images of the cartoon bear Winnie the Pooh, said to resemble Xi. It's well known that this is kind of used as a way for people to get through the Great Firewall and satirize their leader, both Chinese and Western, I should say. Attempts to post Oliver's English name or the name of his show prompted error messages about information that violated related laws and regulations. The Chinese translation of his name does not appear to have been censored. And I'll just continue. For my whole life, I won't be alone. I won't be able to see John Oliver enter China's market after this episode. One Weibo user wrote on Thursday using a Chinese translation of Oliver's name. On Thursday, June the 12th, was the most recent date on Weibo post referring to John Oliver in English. Last year, Weibo removed the Chinese language fan page of John Oliver's show after the satirist interviewed Tibet's exiled spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, according to a previous moderator of the fan page. The fan page had a following of around 3,000 users at the time, said the moderator, who declined to be identified. John Oliver must have seen this coming, but I don't think it really matters. China does not generate any revenue for HBO, said a fan who used to help translate content for the show into Chinese. He too sought anonymity. Okay, so I've checked this out. I typed just John Oliver into the Weibo search engine. Now, some posts did come up, but they all predated June the 12th, so that would indicate that this has indeed happened. I don't know if he had a specific fan page or something. If he did, it certainly hasn't come up. So I want to just tap into this a little bit and the psychology behind it. The Chinese Communist Party has always been sensitive to criticism, always. And I think that is the nature of all single party systems. They want an iron grip on control, so any criticism is totally taboo. But what we've seen in the last 5 years is unusual, even by Chinese standards, because from the period that Mao died in 1976 until Xi consolidated more and more power around 2012, 2013, it was kind of a system of collective leadership. It was still a single party system, it was still a dictatorship in that sense, but there was never really a personality cult around Hu Jintao or Jiang Zemin or even Deng Xiaoping, certainly not in the same way. What we're seeing with Xi Jinping is a consolidation of power that is coupled with a personality cult. This was the cover of Newsweek magazine. Let me see the date. This is March this year. The Forever Emperor. Now, the issue here is not about whether Oliver's positions are right or wrong, whether the criticism details of the criticism is right or wrong. I have no doubt there will be Xi supporters who say, oh, but it's a good thing to tackle corruption, etc., etc. The issue here is freedom of expression. And China is a country that is still seriously restricted. I don't think it's comparable to the situation in the Cultural Revolution, but when you have a situation where criticism of the head of state is taboo, is is forbidden, basically, that is a dictatorship by definition. Um, so when Xi defenders, get angry about Western critique of his extension of term limits, that is coupled with this oversensitivity. I don't think this is a sign of strength. China is a powerful country, but this is not a sign of strength. This is a sign of weakness. It's a sign of insecurity that Xi Jinping personally cannot take criticism. That suggests he is personally insecure. That is not a strong leader, at least not in that sense. He's powerful in the sense he has a lot of power, but it suggests to me that he has thin skin if comedians are being blocked from criticizing him. Look at Western leaders that get mocked and criticized all the time. Look at how Trump is lambasted. um, but even Donald Trump cannot prevent American comedians taking the piss out of him. And this is something that is very noticeable about the Chinese system, the sensitivity of the Communist Party. It's pathetic, frankly. And it isn't a national security issue. It's an issue of this party just wanting to have an iron grip on power. But like I say, that's particularly noticeable around Xi Jinping, particularly Emperor Xi. Just as a disclaimer, I'm making this video in the UK, so I'm not violating any Chinese laws. And I would respect Chinese laws. I wouldn't do anything that would get me into trouble if and when I'm out there. But I really find this distasteful. I find it. What I would say is, if you don't like what John Oliver is saying, engage in debate, right? So you don't like his views on China's human rights situation. You think he's wrong, so criticize him, challenge him. But simply blocking him is frankly rather cowardly. And once again, it shows how insecure and overly sensitive China's Communist Party is. Um, it's a powerful country. China is a powerful country. I think only a naive person would suggest otherwise. But this is not a position of strength. This is a position of weakness. And this is where democracy is stronger than totalitarian systems, because it doesn't have that sort of insecurity. Western leaders, maybe not all of them, certainly not Donald Trump, but most Western leaders know they need tough skin, in the sense that they know they'll be mercilessly criticized and mocked, all the rest of it. But that does not mean that they are weak. It does not mean that they're being a pushover. It means that they recognize freedom of expression. It means they recognize accountability of power. My concern about the situation in China is that Xi is wielding so much power that he will not be accountable. I mean, that comes with the nature of a single party system anyway, because, it's like, if there is corruption, it's basically like internal policing. There is no independent scrutiny of that. Um, I'm not going to say everything she has done is bad. China does have a severe corruption problem, and his efforts to tackle that is genuinely popular with the public. So that is not entirely a bad thing. But I think China also needs to learn from history. Look at what happened in the Mao era, and the party must be aware of this. Um, Mao consolidated absolute power. He turned the party against itself. He turned the country against itself. That ended up in one of the darkest chapters of human history, the Cultural Revolution. Now, I'm not suggesting that's going to happen again, but I do think that free thinking, intelligent Chinese people need to be very, very wary of this. And to be fair, I think many are. They wouldn't necessarily admit this to a Westerner like me because this is coupled with a strain of deep, deep nationalism. But I think many Chinese people are aware that this is not necessarily a good thing. I think she is genuinely popular. I think that's sincere. But I refuse to believe in a country of 1.3 billion people, everybody is okay with this personality cult. I find that hard to believe. And it is a growing personality cult. And it's concerning. Really is.